So Isadora is an earth woman devoted to, revivifying. I like this word, devoted to revivifying, remembering and honoring the feminine principle, awakening and healing the womb, our Mother Earth, and all of humanity. She creates spaces where she gently guides people in reconnecting with their unique essence, their radiance, and their innocence. She's the founder of Womb Seed Wisdom. She's a birth and postpartum doula, a spiral and womb spiral practitioner, a poet, and a land steward. Amazing. Thank you so much for being here, darling. I'm going to let you give the people your beautiful wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie. That was very timely and super beautiful to hear that the reframe of power and what it really means to be in our power, especially during this time and especially as women. And I just feel to start today by just really acknowledging what's happening in the world and how much change and energy is moving and transmuting. And yeah, personally, it's just been a lot to digest and to really sit with. Well, what's going on and what's true, and all of these things. And the womb is really what saves me over and over and over and over again as this place of total refuge and clear truth in this world of the Maya, right? The illusion that we're all maneuvering. And so I just want to honor and acknowledge for people, if you're feeling any anxiety or grief or despair or any, intense emotion, that just allow it and welcome it, and know that there is a greater power within you that is untouched by all of this. And so we're really going to see if we can access that. And so my share today is called Cyclical Wisdom, and it's basically my favorite topic ever to talk about. And it's a big topic, so I've kind of picked different things for today's share. But learning about the cycles, so learning about the menstrual cycle, the moon cycle, the plant cycle, even the journey we go through during pregnancy and birth, and the postpartum in and of itself is a cycle, the cycles we go through during the day. This is nature's time. This is our natural time. And we live in a reality that has distorted time, and in the same way has distorted our bodies, our minds, and our spirits ultimately. And the journey of coming back home for me has been reconnecting to my cycles, my cyclical nature, and my naturalness as a human being. And I love the word human. So it comes from the root is hume, which means humus, like of the soil, and then also humble, so hume, humbleness. And so to be human is to be humbly of the soil. And so I've really adopted that understanding of being human, and just bring that into my life as much as I can. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about cycles, and specifically I want to get into the menstrual cycle because that is just one of my favorite things to talk about. And Zapheria really encouraged me when I was going through the apprenticeship to start and track my cycle and really get to know the energies. And that definitely was one of the many seeds that were planted around connecting to this wisdom, this inner wisdom. And why I think it's so important to share today, and kind of beautifully ties into what Jamie was saying, is like, again, we've been taught a very distorted way of being in the world, and especially as women, of producing or of birthing projects or even babies. Just a way of living that is very solar. And as you'll see, it's a very ovulatory energy. So many of us are like, think we're ovulating our whole cycle, but we're really not. And it's unnatural. It's very unnatural how many of us no fault of our own, are living and are kind of forcing and striving. And so I feel like my transmission and really my medicine that I ultimately need, which is really what we share, is to actually come back to, oh, well, what is nature doing? What is my body actually telling me? What are actually the hormones? What's the shifting that's taking place within me and around me? And so it's a never-ending journey. It's a cycle, right? It's a spiral, but it's something that once you learn about and you become attuned to, you become in tune with it, you the outer kind of pressure and outer, again, the illusion kind of just like, oh, okay, that's happening, that's not my truth. And it's really coming back to, well, what's your truth? What's your cyclical understanding of life and the cycles? So we're going to go on a little journey. And we're going to start at, and I just also, first before we go, I want to acknowledge, if you don't bleed, if you don't have a menstrual cycle, that's beautiful also. And we are cyclical beings, so we can connect to the cycles and to the energies of the cycles no matter what. And menopause brings on its own magic and cycle in that phase. So while I am going to talk about the menstrual cycle, know that it's just energies that we all experience, and you can even see it in a day. It's really, we are the micro of this great macro. And so, okay, we're going to start at day 1 of our cycle. And day 1 of our cycle is the first day that we start bleeding. And this isn't like spotting or anything. This is like the first day of our very heavy bleed is considered day 1 of the menstrual cycle. And this is often connected with the new moon phase of the moon cycle, because right, it's the darkness, it's the inner winter, it's the period where all of our energy, even our hormones, all of our hormones drop, and it's our inner phase. So it's the time where we go within, and it's the perfect time to plant seeds. I like to think of this time also as like just the fertile soil. It's like this is the time of the soil and the darkness and this complete spaciousness. It's also the time of the cosmic womb. We are just in total darkness, and in the darkness is pure potentiality, right? But also in the darkness, we don't want to bring like a bunch of light, because that just, then it's no longer darkness. So we have to really honor and take time to honor this darkness. Also honor the blood that's flowing out of us, the way in which the body is cleansing itself, right? It's actually a cleansing process. And so the archetype present here is the crone, or the wise woman, or the priestess. This is the time of really, I think, in my belief and my experience, where women, we are our most powerful. We, in terms of true power, what power truly is, which is power of within, right? It's not like an external, it's power within. This is the time where the veils are so thin and we can just directly connect and we feel everything. And that's why it's highly, highly recommended that during this time you stay in, right? And also, turn off your phone, just really go within, pay attention to your dreams, really honor what's going on in the inner world. And so a lot less energy outside. And of course, being realistic with our world today, but that might look, like taking an hour nap or something throughout the day, just really honoring that rest. And then I love it because also it's winter. So think of, what foods do we eat in winter time, right? So this is the time to eat warm soups and teas and really replenish like iron-rich foods. So if you eat meat, like bone broths, red meats, and then just greens, like just a lot of cleansing foods, beets and things. And yes, let's see what else. Yeah, and this is really the time, like I say, to plant seeds. So, right, the new moon, in what's been taught to me, it's it's the time to plant seeds. So it's not the time to do, it's not the time for things to manifest or anything in the physical, but it's actually the time of the inspiration, to be inspirited, to receive what is coming through, and then just letting it sit there and actually not doing anything about it. Right. And then so bleeding's typically 3 to 5 days. I will say if you bleed fully for more than 7 days, that could indicate hemorrhaging. So I always put that in there because that's really something a lot of women don't know. And I think if that's the case, you can always reach out to me if you need help with that, but also, just look into it. So our bleeding tells a lot about our health. Now they're saying the menstrual cycle is our fifth vital sign. So it's basically the major sign of our health and well-being. And so, okay, so we've been in our winter, right? What happens after winter, everyone? Spring comes. I love the inner spring. So, right, it's been winter. Okay, now we're like, all right, we've cleansed. We're literally a new being. We're like literally brand new. Like, think of like a newborn. And now we come into our spring phase. So that's our pre-ovulation phase. And so during this time, our estrogen peaks. So our estrogen is rising during this time. So think of like estrogen, right? It's like this very feminine hormone that's very much tied to our energy and just leading up to that period of being fertile and all of this. So this is our inner spring. So this is before ovulation. And this is the time where the archetype of the virgin and the maiden come out. And so our energy is slowly starting to transition to the outer world. And so we're just like, I always think of this is like the most flirtatious time of our cycle. It's kind of like, okay, like let's get to know the world. I kind of think of like bunny rabbits, they come out and look at you, but then if you look at them, they kind of go away. So we're not yet ready to like fully meet the world, but we're like, okay, we're going to start doing things. All right, we're going to start like transitioning out and meeting people and creating action plans. So I, treat the cycles as a business plan basically. So it's like, okay, bleeding, inspiration comes. Pre-ovulation, okay, I'm going to start getting really organized because I know when I hit my summer phase.
Sorry,
Yeah.
The comments said that the live video has ended.
Oh,
now they're saying you refreshed the page and the video came back. So refreshed and it's back. Okay, sorry, I just didn't want anyone to miss out on anything you were saying.
Oh, that's okay.
I think
technology, another funny part of our world. Yeah. Yes, no worries. This is like my favorite. I'll talk about this all the time, so I would be happy to say it 100 more times. So yeah, that you can also use your cycle as a business plan. So the springtime is really creating your action plans and beginning projects or continuing with projects if you haven't, right? And so this is also corresponds to the waxing moon. So it was new and now it's waxing. So it's growing basically towards fullness. And this is again, so bleeding is not the time to stretch your comfort zones or put yourself into an uncomfortable situation. But this pre-ovulation is the time to start like, go on a date or like do a post or do some kind of project that maybe you're a little scared of, but you're like, no, I feel it's time. So it's really your time to shine, to start to shine. And then we get to, and that typically lasts, so spring typically lasts about 7 to 9 days roughly. Every woman's cycle is different. They give like the 28 days, but honestly, I think like 7% of the population actually has that as their cycle. So to each their own, I think it's like 28 to 32 is the average. If it's less or more, again, that's something to maybe look into. But then, okay, everything starts to rise hormonally, energetically, and we come to our inner summer, which only lasts, get this, our inner summer only lasts like 2 to 3 days. So that's our ovulation. That's when we're like, we are just fertile. We are dripping. We are like dripping. We're like, life impregnate me. Let's do this. Right. So all the seeds that were planted in winter, remember all the seeds planted in winter, they're coming. They're sprouting. They're fruiting. It's everything's happening during that summer. So that's when we are just so energized. This is the archetype of the mother, the lover, and the creatrix. So this is the time when our energy is actually sustained in the outer world. So we actually, feel like, wow, I could do this forever. I could give speeches forever. I could post forever. I could give birth forever. All of these things. It's like this very high energy. I could have sex forever. It's very much tied to our, obviously we're very sexual can be very sexual during this time. And just so you know, everything I'm saying is like a base. If this doesn't feel like it's you, then again, beautiful. It's just a base for sort of the energetic flow that we go through every month. And then of course this corresponds with the full moon, which I was taught the full moon is the time to just, similar in a way to bleeding, just receive. So it's kind of the time to stand in your light and really receive all the bounty that you have created for yourself during that last cycle. So it's a very much a celebration energy, and just like a really powerful energy. I always think of just like a pregnant person, just so full of life, so nourished and so taken care of. Let's see. Yeah, and this also is a really good time to connect with people, to connect with friends, to connect with family. Like we're so open to the outer world. It's that just feels nourishing for us, and energetically and hormonally, it makes sense. And random fact, but our faces actually become more symmetrical when we're ovulating. I think we've evolved to have that happen for attracting a partner. But so I mean, in some ways we're more attractive. I put that highly in quotes, but like all these things are happening in our bodies that are like, life, I'm fertile, so. And we're just very, very juicy. I can be very juicy, and that can be when we're dripping, we're getting all the liquids. And if you do the fertility awareness method, which is a method of basically using your temperature and checking your liquids every day, that tests into if you're fertile or not, basically, but also it's just a way of tracking your cycle. This phase will have the most cervical mucus, and it'll be almost like boogers. You'll see it and you'll feel it, and you can sometimes feel dripping. It's like, wow, you can usually tell when you're ovulating in that way. Right, okay, so we are like in the light. We're just like, yes, I just want to do this forever. It's gonna be like this forever. And then life's like, no, that's actually not how life works. Like, you actually are not meant to do that, love. That's not life. But I love that you love that. You'll be there again. And so now we enter into this phase that it's like, there's so much said, the pre-menstrual phase, the PMS, which I'm just like, okay, please make space. Please make space. Let's have that be the PMS. So right, think of like a fruit tree. So like a beautiful ripe apple, it's fallen from the tree. So what happens after that? So it starts to rot and decompose, and it goes back to the earth. And so like Zapheria mentioned, this composting happens in a way. So if we at that time were impregnated and we choose to keep the pregnancy, then we will enter a completely different cycle and a completely different phase through our pregnancy. If we do not get pregnant and we choose to not have a child, if we do get pregnant, then we go into our fall phase. So this is the time, and this is the phase that is kind of has the most charge, I would say, in our society, or kind of you know, you see in shows and all this stuff is like, oh, is it that time of the month, and all these things that have really again distorted this magical sacred time that actually pre-patriarchy, pre his story, was a very, very potent and powerful and honored time in our societies. And it's actually said that this is when the woman's sexual energy and sexual drive and capacity for like deep orgasm is actually at its strongest, right? So the ovulation time is, it's sexual in the sense of you're fertile, right? So that's actually the time you're able to conceive. But for the deep, more shamanic, orgasmic pleasure experience, it was known that this inner fall and even the menstruation is the time for that power. And so this is, like I said, the fall, and the archetypes present are the queen, the healer, and the enchantress. And this is our time of transitioning our energy into the inner world. And so again, like with spring, it's like, I also see that it's a very flirtatious time. It's like I think of like a woman like half cloaked and like, I don't know, just half looking at you, but half looking away. It's like a very mysterious time where you're kind of feeling your energy drawn in, but you still want, you know, to be looked at and things. And so this is the time to really start to slow down. There was so much energy in the summer, so it's slow down, declutter. So we also want to always think about bleeding time. We want to prepare for our bleeding time. So when you're bleeding, you want to have, you know, a safe, peaceful, clean, I emphasize clean environment to live in. So this is the time to, you know, declutter, take power naps, start to set healthy boundaries with people around you, reflect. So it's also like a great time to reflect, wow, what happened this past cycle, and what am I really excited to take with me to this next cycle, you know, just like to keep, oh, I really am glad I did this, I want to keep doing this. And also it's really the perfect time to think about, what am I ready to let go of? So this is the time where estrogen drops and progesterone rises. And what's happening in the psyche during this time is a lot that we haven't acknowledged or wanted to feel or kind of have been distracted by because of how much we were in the outer world comes up. So that's why you can, you know, a lot of anger, sadness, rage, really intense emotions. I mean, I just had my fall and it was like, I was just crying for 5 days. And I'm like, not like the whole time, but you know, it's like all this stuff comes up. I was just in total grief about the world. And I was like, where is this coming from? But it was like, oh, because I was so out in the world, I didn't have time to actually just sit and feel this. So it is that time to sit and feel and to really just connect with the energy of decomposing, I guess, and just, yeah, being with that. And like I said, orgasm really lifts your spirits during this time. So it's a beautiful time for making love and self-pleasure. And then we start bleeding again. And that's the cycle in a very short amount of, you know, time to say it. But we can also look at that during the day, right? So like sunrise is that spring, and then midday is the summer, and then evening is the fall, and then sleep is winter. Like I just take these teachings into my whole life, and it feels true for me because it's natural. It's actually nature's time. And yeah, I feel that to connect to that is to connect to the universe, is to connect to the truth, is to connect to nature and our true nature. And since that whole process, I mean, my cycle is like clockwork with nature. I don't have any pain. There's an honoring, there's an understanding, there's, you know, there's a deep connection. And you know, that which is honored honors itself and feels honored. And so my prayer is, if you're listening to this and some of this felt new or it's like foreign, it's just to follow your curiosity and just also invite you to sit with right now, where am I in my cycle? And how can you maybe bring one of these things into your reality? So yes, if there are any questions or comments, I would love for that. Thank you for going on this brief journey with me.
Thank you, darling. I have a question for you. What ways do you recommend women to track their cycle so that they know like where they are?
Yeah, fertility awareness method. I would be happy to do a class on that. So everyone can look it up. It's the fertility awareness method. It's like 99.7% effective when done correctly. And it involves taking your temperature every day. So you use a basal body thermometer. It's a specific thermometer. You can get them anywhere. And it's very specific, the measurements. So you measure your temperature every morning before you do anything. So it just like roll over, take your temperature. And so your temperature is going to tell you where you are in your cycle. And so the things to notice is when we ovulate, our temperature goes up. So so when I'm the first half of my cycle, it's like I'm at like a 97 point whatever as my temperature. And then when I ovulate, it goes up to 98 and it kind of fluctuates. And then it'll go back down when you bleed. So that's the perfect way to test. And then the second thing is to check your liquids. So check your juices every day. And you can do that like first thing in the morning before you go to the bathroom or after. And you're basically checking to see if there's any cervical mucus. If there's no cervical mucus, like basically there's no white or any liquids or stringiness or anything, then you're not fertile. The sperm can only live in the vagina for 24 hours when you're infertile, and because the vagina is so acidic, and we're actually only fertile about 7 days roughly in our full cycle. A lot of people don't know that. So you just want to look for signs of ovulation, which is the cervical mucus, and then you want to wait. Once you know when you've ovulated, you want to wait like 3 days after that, and then you can start having sex. I mean, we can go into it a lot more. So I would recommend starting to take your temperature, check your liquids. Apps are great, but don't I would not recommend using that as your only way of checking your cycle, because we shift. Like sometimes I ovulate day 18, sometimes I ovulate day 14. Like the rhythm method is not like foul proof. But yeah, I would just start there. And if, it's so simple, but I would say if you do the fertility awareness, start and don't use it as your only method until maybe a few months, like 3 months, and you feel really comfortable and confident. And then it's like I said, 99.7% effective. So
amazing.
Yeah, I would love to do a lesson or teach during the 7 months about that and get people, really connect. Like that's like really connected, and especially to the womb space and all the things around painful menstruation. And I'm just very passionate about all of that, and any womb kind of dis-ease, we can heal it all. So that's what I would start with. Yeah.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and just some real practical pieces in there for people to learn. And I think, it's so fascinating that, for women, we all do actually cycle, but for so many of us, we're not taught anything and we just don't really have the knowledge. So that was such a beautiful share. I'm really grateful for you. And so anyone who has been watching and is loving what Isadora is sharing, obviously you can check her out on Facebook. I'm sure we've tagged her in everything, and on Instagram. So do go and follow her. She is one of the mentors in the Temple of Armella, which we start in, I think, like 10 days or something. So she is one of the mentors. So also, if you were really feeling drawn to Isadora's work, she will be doing a session through there. She will be doing a teaching session. All of the women will be. And then also they will be holding a group of women throughout the whole process. So, any of the women that you really tune into who are of the mentors, you could actually spend 6 months with them, mentoring throughout the whole period as well, throughout the whole program. So if you have really clicked with Isadora, and check out, I have finally put the link to the Temple of Armella and to what we're offering, all of us together. So you could also just come join and be in her pod and be mentored by her for 6 months, along this amazing journey. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, darling. Deeply appreciate you.